Yeah, that kind of takes me up to where I met Trey. I'll turn it over to him in terms of his college career, how he ended up meeting me, and then we'll kind of dive into that winter together.
Yeah, so for me, I had more of a unique path to get to where I'm at now with the O's. But it kind of just began with high school. I obviously went to all the PVR stuff, all these showcases and stuff. So it kind of got a glimpse of that. And looking back, you can kind of see now like what was actually worth it and what really wasn't. I guess looking back, if I was to redo it ever again or give advice to younger, high school, middle school kids that, have the same dream I did as a kid. But, for me, it really begins in high school. I was 6'2" to 6'5" through my sophomore to senior years. I was the projectable guy, so it was just really lanky kid, didn't really fill out, wasn't really, everybody could tell I wasn't going to fill out until later, wasn't an early bloomer. Threw pretty hard for the Michigan area of where we're from in high school, which is if you throw about 85, you throw cheap. If you throw 90, you throw really, really hard. So senior year ended up being around like upper eights, maybe touches 0 or 1s. It wasn't anything crazy like, oh, this guy's blowing 98 and he's 18 years old. So had a couple offers coming out of high school, was uncommitted up until pretty much the national letter of intent day. Um,
Where were your offers?
New Mexico, Marshall, a lot of smaller, Division ones. Never really had any Power Five interest. As a kid, I really wanted to go to University of Michigan, but that really wasn't an option. I guess had a PWO from them, but that's something I just didn't want to do. And just had like from a financial security standpoint. So I ended up committing to the University of Evansville. The money and everything like that lined up. And then, unfortunately, like things just don't work out. So you hear stories and stuff like that. And for me, it was there for a couple months, then ended up leaving.
From there, you transferred out. You went to Howard, right?
After being at Evansville for a little bit, kind of just decided that, I needed to try to go find at least greener grass for myself because it was a situation where I knew I really wasn't going to play until I was a junior or a senior. Didn't really know how much better I could get. There was just too much gray area for me as a player just to be like, oh, I could really see myself being here. You know what I mean? It wasn't where there's other factors of the school or the scene or your friends or all that stuff. I was still 8 hours away from home at that point, or however much it was. But besides that, decided to hop into the portal. Um, Reached out to a couple of JUCOs that reached out to me in high school just because of playing perfect game stuff down south, and then got me connected with Howard College, who gave me an offer out of high school, which is kind of cool considering that I passed up on him, and then it was the ability like, hey, we still want you, man. We have a place for you.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So it kind of really opened my eyes going from a mid-major Division 1 to a historically really good JUCO. So for me, it was just the fact that where we come from up north, and a lot of high school kids around the country in general, there's like this negative connotation with junior college baseball where it's, I don't want to go JUCO. I need to go to Division 1. I need to go to Division 1. Like I was that as a kid, and it was very humbling to show up in Big Spring, Texas, where there really isn't much. Pretty much you're there to play baseball. Obviously, you're going to go to school, but you're there to play baseball and then to go to a 4 year or pro ball. Da, 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 da. So kind of like how it's laid out to be. So for me, it was really eye opening when I roll in as a true freshman in the spring after transferring over that winter break. And I'm in the bullpen. We have, 6 or 7 guys that are all over 6'2" that at least can hit 93 or higher. There's just in the bullpen. So, you know what I mean? And as you see the kickbacks from all the Big 12 schools in the region. So it's like,
Yeah, for
oh
sure.
shit, like these dudes are good. Like we're playing
Yeah,
middle of
yeah.
nowhere, the ball's flying. It's really humbling just to walk into that. So that was the COVID year. So got to playing, I think it was like 2 games. Did well in the 2 games, obviously. Um, had some ups and downs here and there, going through inter squads and stuff like that, just because it's freshman in college, no matter if it's junior college or 4 year or whatever, it takes some time. So did that. COVID hits basically, and then me and Max's relationship, we knew each other, I think, the year before that. So over COVID, we just decided we're going to black ops the whole thing, and we're just going to stay inside the facility every day
Yeah.
through pretty much April, May, June, July, or probably into June. And then, I also got to play on the same Northwoods team. The Max did the County Growlers. And then luckily the COVID summer is kind of the same setup as the Utica League that he mentioned. where it's the Growlers are playing two other teams, same field every night, double headers, 5 innings. And then so you're just getting your innings. So honestly, like that summer was huge for me because as a 19-year-old kid, I was able to really figure out like how to make changes by myself. Like I couldn't go to a facility because we're playing every day. I got to show up and,
Right.
get my own stuff in. So for me, it was just learning little things like, okay, how to tweak my routine. Like I don't feel good. What do I need to do when I'm, back home in between games or at night? Like, what do I need to do as far as how do I need to take care of my body and all that kind of stuff? So that kind of evolved. So that was the first summer I was really like I could be really good. I always knew that like I could have a really good college career at the Division I level returning, but I never really had a glimpse of like football is realistic. So
Yeah.
that summer did really, really well. Had like a lot of appearances, punched a lot, high walk numbers, which for me is pretty on par. That's the one thing I'm battling now, and I'll be open about it because it's what I mean, you have to.
Yep.
So, but that summer it was up to like 95 or 96 as a 19-year-old. It was kind of eye opening. Then we had a couple like pretty big draft guys that have had really good, successful pro careers so far in the first 3 or 4 years that were older than me playing in that league. So then that was really good. And then went back to Howard. Um, Started getting some offers and stuff, had a couple power fives, but never really got any traction with those. Got a phone call from Grayson Crawford, who was at Lipscomb. He's now this past year was the double A pitching coach for the Somerset Patriots, which is a Yankees affiliate. So he's the Yankees pitching coach. Calls me. And then at this point, as Max said, really into the driveline analytical aspect of baseball. This is kind of around right when it was starting to really hit the public eye of like what it
Yeah.
is and how
Yeah.
to implement it, I guess. So everything's very new at this point, but it's the idea that like, okay, TrackMan's huge.
Yep.
Fly ball's got to go. You know what I mean? Like just those little things that like, could really take your game to the level as far as like throwing specifically, as well.
Yeah. And I guess I envy you a little bit because you got to experiment with that kind of routine base in college where I didn't really have any exposure to it until I was really like competing for my career or training for my career.
Yeah, no, 100%. I totally agree. I mean, that was the cool thing though about like that kind of pod system is just because it's trial and error. You have a bad outing, since you're playing 2 5 inning games literally every day with maybe
Right.
one off day a week that like you get to experiment and try out and things. So the call from Lipscomb pitching coach at the time, and then basically we have just pretty much like an hour and a half just talk about like what he does already with them. Brand new guy, was there only 1 year, just came in from Austin P. Kind of and then brought up the notion of like the whole staff uses pulse. Okay, we have a stadium track man as a mid major, which you don't see all that often, or at least you didn't see back then, which would have been 2 years ago. And then kind of just all these other tools that he implements to make guys better. And then that was the one thing, after, having a failed, college opportunity in my eyes of going, Division I out the gate, you know what I mean? Trying to have this big ego as a guy
Right.
and then kind of whiffing on that opportunity and then going JUCO where you get humbled because your resources are way less. You got to make the most of what you got, which is junior college. So for me, we were talking on the phone for an hour and a half and kind of just resonated. And it's like, okay, I don't care about where it is. I don't care about what the colors are. I don't care, all the little things. It's just like, if I know in practice and I believe what he's preaching that we're going to do this kind of stuff every day, day in and day out. This is the place I know where I'm going to get better. That was the number one thing for me is where can I go to continue to get better and then just get a shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was kind of all I wanted. I didn't want to end up with a degree and then go to the number one accounting firm in the US or one of those types of things. It was like, I want to play baseball. I can
Yeah.
always go do something else. For me, it was, I want this to work. So I need to go to the best place possible versus going to somewhere where they got a Nike deal. I'm going to get 12 shirts and a pair of shoes and a glove that looks sick. So I ended up going to Lipscomb. Fall was
Do
a
you think
grind.
do you think it was hard, like, how do I want to phrase this? Like knowing what you knew going into it and what you had been exposed to on the training side, do you think that that made it hard for you to pick a school in terms of trusting a pitching coach with your own development? In the sense that, for so long you had kind of been your own pitching coach or even bounce stuff off of me. But when it came time to choose a school out of Howard, uh, did it was it at all hard for you to like find a spot where you had a pitching coach that you could trust, or was that process pretty simple once you got that call from Grayson?
I mean, I think it was pretty simple, straightforward because, luckily at Howard, I was blessed with a players coach.
Yeah.
He basically, if you put the work in with him, Michael Lopez, who is now the pitching guy at the University of New Mexico, he was more of a players guy as far as like, hey, if you want to go do something, like you want to go throw plyos, you want to throw med balls, you want to do whatever, you want to go run naked sprints, by all means go do it. The only thing is like you probably should do it at night when nobody's going to watch. But if that's what you got to do to go out and play well, go do it. But then he's also there because him and his father both have seen all ends of college baseball, and they've seen big league Hall of Famers, big leaguers, first round draft, all you name it, they've seen it. Him and his dad both. So for me, that's really good opportunity to do my own, but he kept me in check. You know what I mean? There was free range, but it wasn't like, hey, dude, like this obviously isn't working. Like, hey, come in, we'll talk about it. So, that was a big thing for me too, is meeting him because he was one of the most impactful coaches I've had in my life. So from what he taught me, it was kind of like at least growing up a little bit and kind of, again, refining what I was looking for. But, after having a conversation with Grayson where it was back and forth and kind of you can, at least in baseball now, you can kind of see who's blowing smoke and who's not.
Sure.
As far as how this stuff goes. And then, if guys implement it and whatnot. So luckily, talked to a couple guys they had that were there at the time. And then they reiterated, like, no, this dude knows his stuff. So luckily went there. And then it was exactly what he said it was. So bless him for everything because, that was a really big fall for me to refine it.
Sure.
Because before it was a guy with really good stuff, threw hard, but yeah, he might be on, might be off. And then so luckily in that fall, it was at least, let's change the bird shot pattern into like a little bit of buckshot, or we'll tweak some stuff to at least make it feasible. So going to the fall, end up coming out as the closer there, miss opening weekend with just like a bicep flare up that I had at that time. So missed that weekend, but I was itching, dude. Place was jumping. Everybody's ready to go because at this point, Lipscomb had, I believe it was around 20 guys from the portal. So that was the first year really the portal was open. So whole team's brand new. Everybody's getting ready to get out the chute. And then finally, I think I had 2 appearances, one good, one bad. But the best thing I think that happened to me looking back was that our head coach during one of those post-game meetings where everybody has, he knew I blew it, but he kind of looked at me and goes like, "Oh, dude, you're getting the ball again. Like you will get the ball and you're going to, you're going to make it." It was in front of everybody too, which it kind of elevated me because it's like, obviously I know I'm good and I'm frustrated that I didn't do well in my second or third appearance there as the new guy. So that was really impactful for me because once that happened, it was on. You know what I mean? We went on an absolute tear. Even though, I might have walked a couple guys in an inning or one guy here or there, all this other random shit. I got the job done routinely there, and we ended up being really successful. Missed winning the ASUN tournament, unfortunately. So it got to the point then where, as a major reliever who only threw 1 to 2 innings at a time, like it is what it is. It was my role. That's how I was utilized. I can't do anything about that. You know what I mean? I know I'm not a starter. Don't do it because at the time, 2-pitch guy. So end up deciding to go play summer ball in the NECBL in Vermont or Vermont, New Hampshire border.
What year are we in here? Is this 21?
It was 22. So this is 22. So right before I got signed. So I ended up deciding to go play summer ball for a little bit in the NECBL. End up throwing really well. Pretty much stuff on TrackMan was absolutely absurd. I imagine we'll get into, more data stuff in a different episode of like what we utilize, kind of that stuff. But just as far as an introduction goes, I ended up throwing there, played about half the summer, come home, and then, kind of just waiting for my name to get called or at least a shot. And then, for me, it was one of the most, I guess, important decisions of my life, being a true junior with all the stuff going on with everybody, not really having a real classification as far as eligibility wise.
Yep.
So kind of had a really important decision to make as far as, okay, do I come back, go to school, or, if I do get this opportunity that I wanted, for a really long time, like, do I jump at it? And, luckily I had a lot of supportive people kind of around me, just to, bounce ideas off of, you, because this time you're with the Cubs, seeing success, seeing some success and, with your own unique story, the ability to bounce stuff like that off of. And then ended up signing as a free agent to the Orioles, and then kind of just where we're at now. So, I mean, I mean, I'll shoot it back to you just as far as that. I mean,